kupapula ngana ye olina okuyita ekibuuzo ino kiyita okw'omukwano bekuba love me baby love me baby love me baby yeah love me baby love me baby love me baby I want to be your mommy, oh. I want to be your queenie, Mino. I want to be your mommy, oh. I want to be your queenie, Mino. Baby, baby, what you cook? Kone, baby, baby, what you cook? Kone, I want to be your mommy, oh. I want to be your queenie, Mino. I want to be your mommy, oh. I want to be your queenie, Mino. Azawi, queenie, Mino. Azawi.
I'm the only local African in the world. My name is Joseph Kanyamunyu. I'm the Managing Director for Relations African Communications. My career spans 15 years of PR communications of Uganda. And I'm proud to be your host for today's occasion, which will address Africa's best plans, which today will be focused on Uganda and its brands. Most welcome here across the world in Africa. We have quite a comprehensive program for you today. Today we'll be looking at the agenda as follows. We'll look into the methodology for Brand Africa 100. We'll also delve into the insights and rankings. We'll also have a conversation with Uganda's #1 brands, of whom are here with us, 7 of them. We shall also have a panel discussion for Brand Africa 2020, which will tackle Uganda results, COVID-19, and African brands. So, before we start, let us go through a few housekeeping rules. Participants' microphones should be muted during this presentation. 2, ask questions and comments in the Q&A feature, so you can go down there and actually click certain time to take questions and answers. And 3, the recording of the webinar will be sent to you by email. So all of you who are actually right now logged in will have this email box. So for this event, please join the conversation on our social media platforms using the following hashtags. Hashtag Africa Best Brands and hashtag Uganda Best Brands. I repeat, hashtag Africa Best Brands and hashtag Uganda Best Brands. Today's program is headlined by Thebe Ikalafeng. Thebe is the founder and chairman of this important African initiative. Thebe Ikalafeng is arguably the foremost global African branding authority. In a distinguished corporate career, he started at Colgate Palmolive in New York and concluded as Chief Marketing Officer for Nike for Africa. He won over 75 awards in branding and marketing communication globally. Awesome. He has been recognized by New African Magazine as one of the 100 most influential Africans. He founded Africa 100. Sorry, he founded Brand Africa 100, which is Africa's best brands, the only Pan-African research and brand of brands in Africa that provides a metric to assess how African brands compare against global brands and to promote excellence in building brands in Africa. He has been to every country in Africa and over 110 countries from the Arctic to the Antarctica. An adventurer, he submitted Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Elbrus, the highest mountains in Africa and Europe, respectively, in between skydiving, bungee jumping, and paragliding in the most scenic African countries. Thebe will now give us an introduction of why it is important to focus on brands in Africa, methodology that was available to understand Africa's best brands, and most importantly, reveal Uganda's best brands. I'm sure many of you have been on social media asking the same question. So for you right now, this is it. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Thebe Ikalafeng.
Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Joseph. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Looking forward to sharing with you the results for Uganda. I always get asked the question, why do brands matter? I think to me they matter for an important reason. Brands matter because, one, behind every great brand is a great company. Behind every great company are beautiful, great products. Behind every great products are people who are working, there are jobs being created. And when jobs are being created, when companies are being built, when brands are being served, we are paying taxes. And those taxes help to pay for the public goods which we so desire in the continent. So that's why brands matter, and that's why we're excited about promoting brands, and particularly brands in our continent. How did we do this? We do this in two ways. We partner with two global research companies to make this happen. We partner with Geopol, and then we partner with Kantar. Geopol helps us in terms of collecting the data across this vast continent, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And then Kantar helps us to make sense of the results. You may ask, why do we use mobile? Well, we use mobile for an important reason. We use mobile because 747 million people have a SIM card connection in Africa. We use mobile because 49% who have access to a basic mobile in Africa, versus 33% who just have a smartphone. We use mobile because 87% of the connections in sub-Saharan Africa will be by broadbanding by 2025. So we went to Geopol many years ago because Geopol gave us one important leverage. Geopol is able to research the entire continent. They have over 250 million subscribers who cover the range of the continent. They've done 10 million interviews every year in the continent. And SMS is a very important way easy way to do it. They send the survey via SMS and via mobile app, and they speak to respondents who are over the age of 18 and over. We go to 27 countries. Here's the interesting thing about these countries. Those 27 countries, they cover over 80% of the continent's people and over 80% of the continent's GDP. So it's a very comprehensive coverage of the continent. It's not entirely the entire continent, but 80% of the people who live in this continent is a pretty formidable number that we go to. And what comes out of this survey? 3 things. We ask each respondent to give us 3 brands that they admire. Out of that question, it leads to over 15,000 brand mentions, 15,000 individual brands. And then when you add up all those brands, when you go through these brands, you realize that there's about 3,000 unique mentions. So some brands are duplicated, some have got multiple names, and that's how we end up there. We then go to Kantar. We said, Kantar, help us sort out the details. Help us ask my colleagues in Uganda to please put your phones on mute. So we go to Kantar, we ask Kantar to sort out the data. And Kanta has been our partner from the time we started in 2010. Kanta specializes in understanding people across the continent, across the world. As they say, we understand how people think, how they feel, how they shop, how they share, how they vote, and how they view, and that helps us to determine the brands. So you may say, how do you make sense of the big country like Nigeria, country like Botswana, from 200 million to 2 million? Well, we use a weighted average score. That ensures that we're able to create an average, or rather the average, a comparable rankings of the brands across the continent. To make it to the top 100, the brands have to be recalled in at least one other country. So that's quite an important distinction, because if you're going to say you're a Pan-African brand, then one other person outside of your country, not person, but one other country or so must be able to at least say, we have seen the brand, or we have heard of it, or we've recalled the brand. 4 key areas that will come out of the survey. We ask them, give us any brand, any brand. So we don't really specify African brand, European brand, American, let's just say any brand. So we get a listing out of every brand. Then we decided a few years ago, let us focus on African brands particularly. Then we ask them, give us an African brand. So now we are forcing them to think within the African space. There'll be a lot of interesting results you'll see later. And then we also learned a couple of things. Either one of these 2 brands, whether any brand or African brand, we generally don't see a lot of financial services in media. But we know these are very, very, very catalytic categories. So what we then decided, let us add these 2 sub-surveys into the broader survey. So we asked 2 additional questions. What is your most admired financial services brand? What is your most admired media brand? So these are some of the highlights. This is what we've learned across the world. We've learned this much, as I've said, over 15,000 brand mentions, over 3,000 individual brands, but this is the most biggest takeout out of the continent. Of all the brands in the top 100, only 13% of the brands that Africans admire are from Africa. Only 13% of the brands that Africans admire are from the continent. And then those brands are all coming from Nigeria. They come from West Africa, East Africa, West Africa, East Africa, and some come from South Africa. But just what's quite interesting to me, what I found quite interesting, when you look at the number 1 brand in every country in the continent, just broadly number 1, no mention financial services, no mention media, no mention African, just any brand. All of the most, 85% of them are not African. So only a country like Zimbabwe with Equinet, Zambia with Trade Kings, Tanzania with Azam, only those 3 countries have the top brand in the country as the top brand, or the local brand as the top brand. Interesting. We know one thing, that local brands are dominating, and our brands, which started at 34% in 2010, when we were all excited about the continent, about the prospects, World Cup coming to Africa, we were all so pro-Africa. But over the years, our prospects have come down. And there's a correlation between how the economy of the continent has performed from 2010 to where we are right now. Started off with a bang, and we are here now. There's a reason why the global brands are doing well in the continent. They sponsor our religion. They sponsor football. From Adidas, Puma, Nike, they dominate the continent. I know the Liverpool fans, all us new Liverpool fans, and all the old Liverpool fans, and all the old suffering our Liverpool fans, we won. Just as a quick aside, we won yesterday. Football is the religion of the continent. These big brands, they sponsor it. Then we look at the fabrics which we love. We call them our fabrics. The Daisy in German, we call it German brand, German print in Botswana. Then you got the Kitenges and all those, most of those are made in Holland. Kikoe, which used to be China, which used to be Kenyan, is now Chinese. So made in Africa, not quite anymore. But the big brands do well. they create for the continent. Samsung's success in the continent is largely because they are present in every country. I remember speaking to the former Africa CEO of Africa president for Samsung, and he said to me he has been to every country in the continent, and that opened up my eyes. And he said he didn't stay at at beautiful hotels. He said, I stayed with the people. I observed what you do. He says that's what we encourage our people to do, and that's how we create good products for them. A brand like Guinness consumed more in Africa than in its home country of Ireland, because they speak our language. They look like us when they communicate to us. Mobile brands, they are more than just mobile. That's why they see themselves more as technology. Technology for financial services, technology for media, technology for telephony. They are much more than just what they started with. They see themselves as part of the entertainment. So people go to them for entertainment. Then you go to a country like Nigeria, Innocent. You come to where we are today. Then you go to country like Ghana, Katanga, and then you're like, whoa. So we are now creating brands of motor vehicles. We are now moving, and that's some of the things some of the developments that you're beginning to see in the continent. E-commerce is rising across the continent. Let's break. You know how spectacularly Jumia launched last year. But you know what I found quite interesting this year is Alibaba was in the top 100 list. They don't even sell in Africa. But then, of course, always in the continent and sponsors the innovation prize in the continent. Then some brands like Tusker, like Castle in South Africa, Tusker in Kenya, they're not owned by us. I was asked this question the other day in Benin. They asked me the question, many of these brands, we sold them. How could you call them African? I said, simple. If it's made in Africa, created by Africans, inspired by African conditions, it's an African brand. These days, with the fluid capital markets and porous borders, it's very difficult to locate sometimes who owns who. So we take out the ownership equation because brands are moving constantly around the world. Took out the ownership argument and then focus on where was the brand inspired, what inspired it, who inspired it, and who consumes it. Brands like Azam, East Africa, Dangote, West Africa, they are the new African conglomerates. They are feeding us, they're providing oil, they're providing cement, they are providing television, they are everything. And of course, we're learning a few things. Europe and America still dominates. Europe and America still dominate the continent. That's why when asked, in the one question when we asked, what is your most admired African brand? You won't believe. What is your most admired African brand was a question. When we went through the list, some of the brands which came up were Coke, Nike, Techno. You say, but those are not African brands. But you know, these brands, like Coca-Cola, have been around for 90 years in the continent. They found a way to look like us, speak like us, serve us. They've come up with distribution strategies. They've come up with marketing communication strategies. They've come up with packaging that speaks to us. That's why, you know, Coca-Cola is so successful in the continent. Then you look at brands like Nike. I mean, Nike, with what they're doing with Kasper Kepelic, with how they supported Eliud Kipchoge to break the sub 2 hour 40 standing behind Castor with the fight against the IWA. We know one thing: brands can no longer be quiet. So not only do brands like Nike provide great products, but what they also do is they're also behind some of the social issues, whether it is about social justice issues, whether it's about race, as in a Kaepernick situation, gender, as in a Caster Semenya, performance, as in the Eliud Kipchoge case. These brands are always branders. These brands are also saying we can also be right behind African. They're also right behind African stars, like with WizKid, partnered with WizKid to create the star to design his Starboy brand. Partnering with South Africa's Karabo to come up with an aesthetic for their global range. That's what these brands are doing. You know, you look at a brand like Mukwano's. Mukwano, who is probably in Uganda, in our Uganda today. It is one of the most successful brands which features every single year in the rankings. And then, of course, you know, we can't go anywhere without a beer in our continent. And then there's Techno. Techno is amazing because what Techno has done, they're not even sold in China, but they are here in the continent and they're made in China by the Chinese, and we are supporting the brand. We are creating technology that speaks to who we are. Technology, we are customizing technology to meet our needs. Every time I'm in Kampala, my favorite is those borders. My favorite is just to ride around the borders to try and navigate the traffic. But what's better is these global brands have come here and they said, I need to adapt to the African way. Need to adapt to the African way. And of course, one of the big challenges that we are now facing in the continent that we see a lot is there's a lot of brands which do not have, which are not products, which are not branded. Hey, why is Matoke not on the shelves, packaged, branded, and charging a premium? I'm expecting a lot of food products out of Uganda. We should have, because it's probably one of the most food secure countries in the continent. You never go hungry in Uganda in all my times there. There's always organically grown food. And that's what we need to do as Africans. We need to now build onto that, take those brands, those products, and turn them from generics to brands and make money for the continent. This is how the global brands are doing it. They are thinking locally. They're taking the insights here, but they're applying a global standard. And that's how we can thrive as well. So how did the continent do from branding? I'll start first with the global brands, the Pan-African brands. Then I'm going to focus onto the Ugandan brands. Overall, Nike, 3 years in a row, started 10 years ago at number 9. Last 3 years has been number 1. About 50% of the brands which were in the top 100 10 years ago are back. This year, 13% of the brands that Africans admire, only 30% of the brands that Africans admire are African. Then we ask the questions. Remember earlier I spoke about the question of asking them in African, and then just said, don't ask if you don't ask the question, the African brands which make it to the list are MTN, Dangote, and there's Outlaw, DSTV. If you ask them the question, if you say to them, I want the most admired African countries, then they'll reverse the order between Dangote and MTN. Then when it comes to banking, GT Bank, phenomenal bank, does an excellent job in Nigeria and across the continent. BBC, they tell our story. You know, I know as Africans, we always talk about, yeah, but we need to tell our own story. Where the only way we're going to tell our story is we create our own channels. Or if we create channels that can compete with the likes of BBC and CNN and Canal+. But brands like Azam TV are trying in that part of the world. DSTV, the channel of channels. You can also see that a brand like MTN, which is actually a mobile brand, as I said much earlier, it's actually more than a mobile brand now. It is also a media brand because we rely on that. So let's talk Uganda. Let's talk Uganda as I sip one cup of coffee. It should be Ugandan coffee that I'm drinking. It should be. I don't know where it's from, but it should be Ugandan. I'm going to check where my coffee is from. If it's not Ugandan, I'll be upset because Uganda makes the best coffee. The most admired brands in Africa, Pepsi. In Uganda, most admired brands in Uganda. Number 3, just overall. Just overall. Just asking most admired brands. I don't specify financial services, media, Uganda, African. I just said most admired. Pepsi 3, MTN 2, Coca-Cola, the real thing. It's phenomenal what Coke has done in this continent. 90 years, as I said earlier. I think I told the story of Coke already. These are the top 10 most admired brands in Uganda, led by Coca-Cola. Most admired Ugandan brands? Number 3, Move It. Number 2, Mukwano. The most admired Ugandan brand, Nile Beer. Nile is phenomenal. It's in the top 100 across the continent. It is one of the most admired in Uganda. It is the most admired African brand in Uganda, one of the most admired African brands in Uganda. Congratulations to now. I have coffee to now. I have Ugandan coffee to now. That's until I start drinking. And I know for certain when I start drinking, I need to drink now because that's the brand. So that's your all Ugandan list. Nile, Mukwano, Movit, Rwenzori. I need to return to Rwenzori. I need to go to Rwenzori to go try those treacherous mountains. Bell, Club, Bale, Darling, Kasere, Akandi. You have to be Ugandan to know these brands. But to me, what even matters is here is the potential for us to build on this. If we in Uganda can create a brand like Kira that everybody in the world knows about, we can do even better brand, more brands. If we can create a brand like Nile, we can create many other brands. Then let's look at the most admired African brands. The most admired African brands in Uganda. Number 3, DSTV. Number 2, Nile. Now, and the most admired African brand in Uganda, MTN. MTN, phenomenal African brand, has done very well across the continent. I think it's the most dominant African brand that we are all familiar with. The most admired African brands in Uganda, MTN, Nile, DSTV, Mukwano, Kazire, Spokeless Batlat, Rwenzori, Somwana, Kentaro, and Standard Bank. Those are your most admired brands, African brands in the continent. So remember, in this area, we asked them, what is the most admired African brand? Then we asked them, what is the most admired financial services brand in Uganda? What's the most admired financial services brand in Uganda? 3. Bank, Standard Bank. Number 1 most admired financial services brand, Centenary. Centenary again returns as the bank of choice in Uganda. Congratulations to Centenary Bank. Every time I drive from the airport all the way into the rest of deep Kampala, this is what I see along the way. One of the most beautiful, most dominant brands are in the continent. Central Bank, Standard Bank, FCU, Equity Bank, Absa, Swico, UAP, and SFI, MTN, and Post Bank. I think what is also quite interesting is to see a lot of the public service brands, like the Post Bank, coming through. So that's those are the brands that we admire out of Uganda. So now let's talk media. What is the most admired media brands in Uganda? So when we ask two questions, most admired media brands in Uganda, Kenya's NTV. So then we asked the same question, then we said, sorry, let me go out. So, and those are the brands. Then we asked the same question again, what is the most admired Ugandan media brands? UBC, Uganda TV, returning again, it's number one, NBS. Phenomenal brand, one of the most dynamic brands out of the region, back at number one again. And there's Bukeda UBC, Simba, make up the list. So, in summary, these are the most admired brands out of Uganda. The most admired brands in Uganda, across the board, Coke. Most admired Ugandan brand, Nile. Most admired African brand in Uganda, MTN. Most admired financial services brand in Uganda, Centenary. Most admired brand overall media, NTV. Most admired Ugandan media brand, NBS. Congratulations to the great brands out of Uganda, which are enabling Ugandans to connect, to transact, to celebrate, and to be proud. There's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit out of Uganda. And every time I'm in Uganda and every time I go around the country and I'll observe some of these brands from the Movids, from the, like I said, the NBCs of the world, the Niles and all that, and even the ones of the future like Kira, I always say, Uganda is in a great spot. Congratulations, Uganda. Over to you, Joseph. Joseph, it's back to you. While we're getting Joseph ready, I hope you did not. I hope this didn't come as a surprise. If they come as a surprise, I always say to myself, what's the surprise here? There shouldn't be a surprise. We should know these brands, but most importantly, the exciting part is when you see those brands, which many of us did not know from the other categories, as they rise up in the next few years. Joseph, congratulations on leading some of the great brands in Uganda. It's over to you.
Thank you, Thebe, man.
I'm going to have my coffee while you have your interview.
Enjoy that coffee from Africa, from Uganda especially. From
Uganda, it's Ugandan coffee.
Well done. Thebe, this is fantastic. There's a lot of excitement here and shocking also. I mean, we can't imagine the emergence of some of these brands. And of course, we want to hear more. So thank you very much. Thank you for taking us through the results in Uganda for 2020. This is the second time we are hosting these announcements here in Uganda. And are happy to be part of Brand Africa's 10th anniversary. Congratulations. While some results could be expected, there were some interesting surprises, which are food for thought amongst us here. And I'd like to congratulate the Ugandan brands and the non-Ugandan brands that were recognized here today. I'd like to get some reactions though, especially from some of the brand winners who are here. But if I may turn to the most mentioned brand, we've had Nile Breweries mentioned twice. An applause for them. And actually, excellent. And actually, I know that the head of marketing is on the Zoom link, he's in the audience actually, and I'd like her to be able to answer some of my questions. So if she can be added, that is Miss Amo Majok, head of marketing. Of course, her colleague is here with me, Miss Flora Aduk. But I want to hear from, yes, Amo.
Is she close to you? Maybe you can call her close to you if she's close to you.
She's somewhere in the audience, online.
Hello.
But I can... fantastic.
Amo, hello, Amo, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Are you excited?
Super excited. I mean, who wouldn't be?
Excellent. So Amo, I'd like to ask you a quick question. What do you think makes Ugandans choose your brand among the best in the country?
Thanks, Joseph. If I'm to say, I think our brands are brewed from not only world-class ingredients, but also using world-class standards. And I think also one of our biggest wins as now breweries with our brands is that they are brands that are made in Uganda for Ugandans and by Ugandans. And over the years, we have delivered, I think, on programs, both CSR and marketing programs that have allowed us to be able to connect with our consumers and the community, and also to become part of their everyday experiences. And this is something that we plan to continue doing for the next 100 plus years.
Amo, will be around in 100 years.
I will not be around, but keep passing this on to the next generations.
Excellent. So, Amo, the whole world is under tremendous throughout this pandemic. What are you?
I would say it's been a challenge noted, and the Ugandans within our value chain, especially our communities, with the fact we have had to continue delivering not just on our brand promise, but also on ensuring that our sustainability commitments to the Ugandan community continue to be delivered on. Obviously, we now have to ensure that our brands and our programs remain relevant, especially with the changing consumption trends and the changing times. We look at it, there's people consuming services and brands out of home into the in-home. So as much as we know it was always big, is definitely in explosion right now. And these are trends that we intend to continue leveraging to be able to reach our consumers.
Wow, wonderful. Once again, congratulations. Thank you for the performance.
Congratulations for COVID to be now. We're going to drive Kira, and we are going to bank at Centenary, and we are going to listen to NBS and NTV, right?
Please come through. We're going to have a Nile come through.
Okay, fantastic. This is great. So I'd like to get some more in-depth reflections on the broader African results, and specifically the Ugandan results, and to give perspective on the challenges of building brands through beyond this pandemic. I'd like to invite Thebe, founder and Africa chairman, to tell us more on how we can handle that.
Are you also going to get Amos and Sarah to join the group?
Yes. Oh yes, why not? Amos and
because I see they're around. I can see Amos. I saw Sarah earlier. So it'll be quite interesting to get their feel. I've given you my thoughts.
I'd like to introduce them actually right now. Today we have on the panel Mr. Amos Wekesa, who is actually the director for. I can't be heard. It's a problem. Sorry. You can hear me? Excellent. Okay, so quickly, I'd like to introduce the Great Lake Safaris, Mr. Amos Wekesa. Mr. Amos Wekesa is a private sector brand builder. He is been promoting the tourism sector. He's actually here to mention some of his schemes on building brand Africa. With him also is Sarah Kagingo. Sarah Kagingo is sorry, Communications, which is a digital agency. She is also the Public Relations Association, all the professionals, both private and public. And she's also been working in the tourism sector. I think they have really much of the time interacted with Wekesa. But these people spend their time building brand Uganda. So much of it, they have had experience, you know, because I know Amos has a tourism, safaris, and you deal with so many people coming in to visit Uganda, right? And you have been to CNN, African Voice, to talk about Uganda. You have also been able to have so many talks telling Uganda. You're also on the board of UTB, right? Used to be. So I'd like to just spend some time to ask some questions to Sarah. Sarah, what do you think a brand has to get right to be top on the ranking?
Thank you, Joseph. Do you pick me?
Yes, I get it.
Solutions. What are you doing locally to the response against COVID in your country, and in this case, Uganda? I'm not surprised that NBS TV has won. I remember in April and May when many of the brands in Uganda and across Africa were cutting down on their staff, cutting pay. I came across a note by the CEO of NBS TV to his members of staff, reassuring them that nobody is going to lose their jobs. He connected with so many people around Uganda, connected to publics, connected to his staff. Now that is an indelible print. Two, we have heard and we all are aware that consumers' habits are shifting. In fact, when Uganda was under lockdown, you'd think that many of the brands, especially those that were engaged in the supply and delivery of foods, you'd think they are digital-only platforms. So any brand that would like to stay afloat needs to invest in digital transformation. But we also are aware that incomes are low, ad spends are being cut. So what do brands need to do? Human species are forever attracted to compelling stories. Tell your brand story. And these stories can help cut the spend on acquisition of customers. A compelling story will forever remain with your customers, with your consumers, and you connect with customers emotionally. But the one mistake we should not do as brand custodians is to try and jump on COVID as a time to ramp up sales. Your story can actually break or make you. What you need to do now is package yourself as empathetic, communicate humanly, but also deliver on your brand promise. We've seen Stambik unveiling a new brand promise, that is finding new ways to make dreams possible. Now that communicates to consumers, it communicates to clients. So my tips are: 1, tell compelling stories; 2, ensure you invest in digital transformation; but 3, during this time, do something, be part of the solution to the COVID-19 response.
Thank you, Sarah. Now I'd like to direct a question to Amos. Amos, who is one of our panelists here. Amos, are you surprised by the results? Particularly Uganda brands that are top of the table. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I also want to congratulate, of course, first the Ugandan winners, the likes of Centenary Bank, NBS, now Breweries, all those guys. And thank you so much, Thebe, for putting this together. And I want to invite you to Uganda next time you're in Uganda. I own a few accommodations in national parks. Uganda has some of the best national parks in this country, potential for cruising. You'll be my guest, so don't forget that bit. Beyond eating the Ugandan Rolex, you'll be able to experience something new when you come to you as well. Joseph, and I think what we need to discover as Africans, the first thing you need to do in life is find that business that you create. After you have found that business that you have created, the next thing is make sure that you are well networked, because it does not matter what type of business you have. If there are no networks to help you be able to grow, you have a problem. Now, when you get those networks, then those networks are going to expect that you provide, that you offer what you say. Like Sarah said earlier on, you say, I am good morning, you should actually be there at 6:30 in the morning. You know, that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, in my business, Great Lake Safaris, which is one of the companies that run, I tell my driver guides, supposed to be done delivering the brand. I think it's also started up a Facebook page where I've never asked anybody to be my friends, but I think we're now about 100,000 people. But just because I post and I'm consistent every day, people are able to follow, people are able to trust your brand, they're able to know what you're doing because you're always updated. Human beings are funny. If I don't see you, I don't hear about you. In fact, you don't exist. That's how life is. So you must be consistent in your provision.
Amos, I can tell you one thing. I'm definitely coming. I'm coming to your properties.
Perfect. I'm back.
Joseph and I did we tracked the gorillas. We traveled hours to go track the gorillas. We are now coming to track your properties when you come back.
Okay. So over to you, Thebe. I want to go back to the Pan-African results first. Why are African brands so underrepresented? What do we need to compete? And did the Ugandan brands surprise you?
Joseph, I think we're underrepresented for perhaps a couple of reasons. One is, I think I mentioned earlier, as well as I was speaking, that we have a lot of cultural products in the continent that we haven't been able to transform into brands and get premium and package them well and sell them into the marketplace. And as a result, the brands that come into a continent then come and take over that space that would have been ours. So that's the one side. But the other part of it is that we also don't even register our own trademarks. We don't protect our own brands. See, in order to be successful in building a brand, you must create it, you must protect it, and you must add value to it, because then it will return value to you. So those are the challenges that we're facing as a continent. But of course, the other problem that we're facing is probably a more social problem. So there's a socio-economic problem, and then there's another psychological problem rather. And that's it's a fact that as Africans, we don't seem to promote and to support anything made in Africa. we always think made in Africa is inferior to made anywhere else in the world. We are very happy to wear a fake Gucci than to wear a real kitenge. That's just how we are. We don't find and value excellence that comes from us. I think it's an innate problem that we need to deal with as people, as Africans, because once we are able to overcome that, we'll be able to build our great brands.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much.
Oh, you want to know if the Ugandan brands surprised me? Well, you know my favorite brand. My favorite brand is Kira, right?
Kira Motors, yeah.
My favorite motor vehicle brand, my favorite motor vehicle is the Kira. You know, I've been in it, I've driven it in the yard in Kampala. I now want to see it on the main roads, from the airports to the hotels and to the houses, right? And I'm hoping that people will begin to see this. Not really. I'm never ever surprised by the brands in the country. What excites me is when I see those brands which the people in the country know well, and they are part of their everyday life. I think Sarah spoke earlier, or rather Amos spoke earlier in terms of how these brands are like the Nile, have become part of the everyday experience, how they're part of how people identify and describe themselves as Ugandans. So no, I'm not really surprised. I'm actually excited. I'm actually excited. To me, the ultimate success is if every single top brand in the country is from the country. That, to me, it means that we are putting our countries first. So that's what I want to see. What do we need to do to move to build great brands as Africans and as Ugandans into the future? We need to invest in insights. We need to research. Africans spend less than 0.5% of their GDP on research and development. We're not going to go far if we don't spend money there. We need to protect our brands. So protecting our brands is going to be quite important for us, and protection means intellectual property. 3, we need to create value for our brands. So we need to add value onto our brands. Then the brands will return value. As I said earlier in the beginning, behind every great brand is a great company. Behind every great company are people who are working hard. And behind all those people and the companies and the brands are tax revenue streams. And those streams help to build great countries. If we want to become great countries as Ugandans, as Africans broadly, we need to build and buy and support Made in Africa and Made in Uganda.
Perfect. That is very true. And I hope the panelists agree. We need to support the brands made in Uganda, right? Absolutely. Okay, I believe there are some questions that are coming from the audience. I'd like to take those because we want to hear from all around us. Is that?
Where are the? I see the one question. The one question there says, "Where are the education brands?" So I looked at the one question that says, "Where are the education brands?" Yes, where are they? So I think education is one of those. Education is one of those that we perhaps need to, in the future, to bring it as a subcategory and focus on most admired education institution. So I think we will add that. We'll add that onto our next survey, because you're right. I think the genesis of the question is right. Is if we're going to create great brands, we're going to protect them, and we're going to extract value out of them, then we need to do it. So the education brands are going to be quite fundamental for me. I mean, but of course, we need people like Sarah and Amos have built great brands already. They can tell us a little bit more further in terms of some of the things they think Ugandans need to do.
Yeah, I think
Sarah, so good to see you again. And as far as you're concerned, Sarah, Sarah, you're muted. Unmute. Sarah is muted. Amos is muted. There you go, Sarah, you're back. Sarah, which is the one brand that surprised you?
Surprised at all. The brands that have won today just unveiled a new promise. to help us achieve our dreams, and we are waiting. We've been seeing and actually applauded them as the public relations body in Uganda for being on the offensive on the digital front. But what I wanted to say today is Uganda that is not yet tapped. Brands in agriculture agreed as a country that food security is #1. So can we convert our food, increase its shelf life, and penetrate these markets? Uganda can be a food basket of Africa. We are a very beautiful country, actually loaded by expatriates all over the world, as from the continent. That is something to tap into.
Indeed.
In fact, has already started implementing and ensuring, for example, hotels are heeding to help going forward in this crisis. What will determine the choice by a tourist to travel, what will determine a choice of destination will be health and safety. Over to you, Joseph.
Joseph, I wanted to just check with, I think I agree so much with you, but I'll tell you, Sarah, when Joseph and I went trekking up the mountains to go hang out with our cousins, the gorillas, the silverbacks, when we went up the mountains, I said to him, one of the most amazing things I took out of the experience was just what a beautiful environment it is for tourists in Uganda. Very safe tourism products, beautiful tourism products. So I agree with you. Uganda is really one of those beautiful countries. Joseph, it's back to you.
Okay, fantastic. You know, I wanted to also say, I mean, you know, Amos sits on the presidential roundtable for investment. He should be able to tell us what he's doing about his local brands. You know, it's unfortunate that he's off.
Come speak for yourself. I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree indeed. You know,
come in anytime shortly. Yeah.
We need to make sure that we put these brands on the agenda, on the national agenda. These great brands, we are building great countries, and we're building a great continent.
Yeah. Okay. As Amos comes back, I see there's another question. Someone is asking, how about the energy industry?
Geez. You know, the energy industry, you also don't expect to see much of them unless, you know, Sarah mentioned something very important, and Abu, both of them said something important, is to be granted. So for them to be able to stand out, they need to be empathetic, they need to invest in they need to invest in social responsibility, they need to be present in everyday's life. Because, you know, nobody looks at it and enhance your life, and Amu has put it. Amos is back.
Yeah.
So you are on the board. What are you doing to promote this Uganda brand?
Thank you so much for one of the things that we do at the present political class about the value of tourism, generally speaking. Some of the things, Uganda was the best tourism destination to the general manufacturing. Where you go to the beach and spend a day and you will not probably the amount of food, the amount of... Now, that said, the Presidential Investors Roundtable, am I still on?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, that said, we have engaged the President of Uganda. As I speak right now, we are having about $6-7 million invested towards the marketing. They will very soon, and going to be hiring a firm to be able to take as much footage for Uganda in terms of videos and photography, because the other thing that the government is trying to do is get rid of things that challenge the private sector, like over taxation of the private sector. People, when we told the president we have 17 taxes in as far as tourism is concerned, I mean, he was very shocked. So all these kind of things that are being reduced because of the presidential investors roundtable. But that said, I just want us to continue in knowing that the private sector in Uganda, for example, is still young. You asked them why you did not find Great Lakes Safaris on the on the shelf, but the truth is that I'm running a business after having such as a stripper, 20 businesses combined. That means we're now ready for takeoff. We need to be able to go up and be able to turn over $50 million. That's something that we're now starting to think, taking the direction, taking the faith in that direction. It's taken us a long time to build. It's taken me 20 years from a briefcase to bring it where it is right now. But online, we have a bit of presence. We've had a lot of engagement with other different stuff. I've also been able to try and push as hard as possible. But one thing that I like about what you're doing, until African brands start growing, be appreciated within your country, then you go be appreciated. Go to the world and be able to fight to conquer the world.
We've lost Amos, but I think I got the essence. I agree entirely with Amos. And Amos, 20 years from our sweeper to this, congratulations. Many people don't even have the time and the risk that you've taken. So congratulations. And I'm excited that people like you are on the Presidential Advisory Committee, because then it means that you are putting on the agenda those made in Uganda initiatives, which will become the brand of the future. Congratulations. And Sarah, always doing an amazing job telling the story of Ugandan brands. Congratulations on it. Kenya Relations Association of Uganda. Joseph, I think we, on my part to you, I just want to say thank you so much for always championing the best of Uganda and always ready to champion the Brand Africa initiative.
Thank you. Okay. So I'd like to congratulate the brands who are here. Well done. As we go to close right now, I think the best thing, what's going to happen is that once this has closed, there will be a moment of giving out the awards. But I'd like to say, most importantly, congratulations to those brands that have been recognized among the best, covered in full in the latest edition of the African Award and Brand Leadership. Who take time, Uganda, thank you and wish you well. Goodbye. It has been fantastic.
Thank you, Uganda. Thank you, Africa.